day and kind of your recollection of the events that happened. And I guess more broadly, do you believe that the comments that you made were breaking decorum?
So on Tuesday, we received the governor's amendments and a letter from the governor that used some very harmful language. It called gender affirming care, which again is medical care accepted by every major medical association. It called it Orwellian newspeak. And in the same breath where he was endorsing and furthering a bill harming trans youth, said that we were deserving of dignity and compassion and respect. And I said, that's not what we need from our government. Trans people need access to the medical care that saves our lives. And when I stand up on legislation targeting the trans community, a community I'm a part of, I speak with precision and clarity. And I address the harm, the very real harm that these bills do to my community. I feel like I stood and gave voice to the damage that these bills do. And I am proud to have stood up in defense of my community.
Yeah, definitely. And so, the comments that you did make that were the reason that the Freedom Caucus decided to attempt to censure you. Do you believe those comments were worthy of that kind of reaction?
I think again, we have seen so many bills targeting the trans community, from bills targeting our art forms, targeting stories told us about us, our ability to be out in schools, to stay safe, our ability to access healthcare, and now in Senate Bill 458, writing us out of code entirely. And I think when you are legislating away trans people from public existence in Montana, being held accountable to that is something that needs to happen. And if they feel like that was a slight, it is because for a moment, I showed them what their bills do.
Yeah, definitely. So, in your words, kind of your reaction was reasonable regarding the amendments that the governor had presented in your head.
I needed to stand up in defense of my community, and that's what I did.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Okay, so then fast forward to today. Were you kind of blindsided when they didn't call upon you to speak? Were you expecting that?
Um, I believed that could happen. The speaker had spoken to me and said that he was not planning on recognizing me for the remainder of the session. And so you don't know if he'll actually do that in the moment. And so when I wasn't acknowledged, I turned to my minority leader and said, hey, this happened. They're not going to allow me to engage in debate on this bill and presumably any bill going forward, which is why after that bill was heard, she stood up in my defense to call out that inherently undemocratic action.
Yeah, definitely. And what kind of was the emotions running through your head when you realized that you were not going to be allowed to speak?
The cruelty of on a bill, Senate Bill 458, that writes trans, non-binary, and intersex people out of existence from Montana code. That in the same moment that you were trying to legislate us out of code, you would also choose that moment to silence one of the two trans representatives in that body. It is telling the level of cruelty and undemocratic nature.
Yeah, definitely. And do you feel that there were any underlying, I guess, reasons for them not wanting you to speak on this particular bill? Or do you believe that it was only because of the comments you made?
Can you rephrase that question? Right.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm just wondering if you feel that the only reason that they decided to not allow you, or the speaker decided not to call upon you to speak, was just because you broke decorum. Do you believe that was the reason?
We have heard a lot of people say things that other members disagree with. I am sure that there are people in the Republican Party who don't believe that these bills cause harm. And for them, they would not understand the truth behind my words. But we've also heard across the legislative session, we heard people refer to abortion as child sacrifice. We had members stand up and call the body and other people morons. There has been a breach of intense emotions within debate, but each of us were sent here by our constituents to engage in that debate, and we deserve access to participate in that debate. So it's telling that the speaker chose this moment, and me particularly as a representative, to wield his authority to ignore a member of the House of Representatives, whereas when we've heard other controversial statements or other statements that people disagreed with, he did not choose those moments. So I would add, yeah.
Yeah. So just to clarify, I guess, so there have been other comments that have been made that could have been a breach of decorum as well, but there weren't the same consequences, is kind of what you're saying.
I am saying, yes, that there have been heightened emotions and statements that members have disagreed with and felt hurt by. And not all of those have been the speaker chose this moment and me as a representative to choose to wield decorum as a cudgel.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw the statement that you posted to Twitter. And in that you kind of said that you felt unconcerned about the Freedom Caucus's movement to try to censure you. I guess, how do you feel now that you were restricted to speak despite that not even being part of it, if that makes sense?
When you stand in defense of a community that has been so intensely under attack this session by the Republicans, when you stand in that community's defense, I feel proud to have done so. And I remain unconcerned with their attempts to censure me or not recognize me for the remainder of the session. I will always work to defend my community and stand for my constituents. And I'll continue to do so to the best of my ability. And the actions that they take are reflective on the voices they choose to silence in this body.
Yeah, definitely. And was Tuesday, I guess, the first time that you've had this sort of conflict where they believed you were breaking decorum, or have there been other comments in the past that have been taken negatively as well from comments that you made that have been taken negatively by other people?
So the first thing I would note is that I was not called out of decorum during the discussion on Senate Bill 99. The majority leader objected to parts of my speech that I gave, and the majority leader has stood up on various bills. The majority leader stood up on the drag bill, which was inherently designed to target drag and potentially trans people. The sponsor of that bill, in his letter to legislative services, said he was targeting trans strippers. And the majority leader stood up to object to my noting that this bill targeted trans people. And so there's been moments like that in the past, but never, it was not until yesterday evening when the speaker said he was going to refuse to recognize me that I was told that I was out of decorum in his
Oh,
mind.
okay. So you weren't informed on Tuesday that the speaker believed you were out of decorum then, not until yesterday, huh?
I was informed yesterday. I knew that Tuesday the Montana Freedom Caucus had called for my censure, and that the majority leader had stood up to object to what I had said in debate. But our minority leader has stood up to object to things said in debate. That happens. But it wasn't until yesterday that I was informed.
Yeah.
The
So
speaker would no longer be recognizing me as a duly elected representative to speak on any bill.
yeah, interesting. Okay. Um, so I guess, what kind of is the next steps for you going forward in this legislative session?
We're on tomorrow's day 79 of what is up to a 90-day legislature. There are a handful of bills left coming, bills that impact my constituents, bills that I care deeply about. I will continue to punch in to speak on those bills on the House floor, just like I was elected to do. And I would hope that the speaker at some point will recognize me and grant me what are my rights as a legislator for the district to speak on behalf of the constituents who elected me to do so.
Yeah. Do you expect him to?
I do not hold any expectations one way or the other. I will continue to stand up for my community and stand up for my constituents. And what the speaker and the Republican Party elect to do, given their supermajority, it will be up to them to decide if they allow me to engage in debate as an elected official or if they continue to silence.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I kind of just have one more question for you. A bigger picture question of just, you know, is this the sort of, I guess reactions that you were expecting going into this legislative session, or going into this career even? Did you expect it to be, I guess, this hard? I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah.
I knew that there would be people in the legislature who would push anti-trans legislation, who would harbor biases against me because of who I am. I had hoped that being elected, I could focus on all of the things that I wanted to work on in that building, from housing to healthcare to beyond, and including LGBTQ rights. But this year, we've seen over 450 anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation introduced across the country. That is more than every other year combined. It is clear that the Republican Party, both in Montana and nationally, is making targeting the trans and queer community a part of their platform. And for as long as they continue to do so, I will continue to stand up for my community.